Juggle your rub signs, double dealers. This is internet personality Vangelus, and I have unearthed a childhood Transformers Generation 1 toy whose intrigue has remained with me through most of my cognitive development. Punch is ostensibly an Autobot double agent, masquerading as Counterpunch to deceive his foes. But perhaps his friends as well. Who is the real primary identity? Hire me to write the story idea I've had for over a decade, and find out. I don't know a lot about Pontiac Fieros, but apparently this is one. You know, run through the filter of a transforming toy robot, with funny armpit greeble behind the front wheels, unpainted to non-existent rear windows, and bright red hub caps. It does roll, AO, and through my childhood lens, it always sat well next to other G1 Autobot cars of the diaclonic persuasion. Unfortunately, there's no storage for either of Punch Counterpunch's weapons. There's also an odd yellowish fade across most, but not all, of the blue plastic on this figure, and I don't think that's from the passage of time. I remember him being this way back when I still had cable television. One thing that has suffered from the passage of time, though, is the transformation on this guy, namely the forward waist slide. It feels like I'm moving through layers of child slush, rust, and torment. Other than that, it is a solid car-robot conversion scheme, and I'm sure I could go in there and lube up his groin if I ever muster the courage to do so. Punch even has a dynamic head reveal, predating the phrase dynamic head reveal by roughly 2 decades, which is a level of swagger that a 21st century human can only dream of aspiring towards. I know what you're thinking. That's not animation accurate. Well, my friend, whatever really was back in G1. However, this shorter bot mode is the intended Punch robot form. How can I prove this? By pasting in a screen cap of the TF Wiki paragraph. Just do what I did and read it. Show some initiative. Anyway, I do much prefer the idea of the Punch mode being markedly different from Counterpunch, even in height. The only major issue here is that his short king stature makes his head look a bit comically large. It also gives him a big hunk of heel drag, but that just makes him fit in even more with fellow Autobot leg chunkers like Jazz or Camshaft. I love Punch's color scheme and how it leans into bright orangey yellow components that will disappear from, well, frontal view when he assumes his other guise. Even his twin mortar launcher is loudly and proudly gleaming with warmth. It's a small thing, but his bright red hands actually do a lot to help me accept the previously mentioned bright red hub caps. Also, okay, fine, yeah, this is the robot mode configuration I grew up on, the one most people know, and it's fine! It does look a bit better, but at the cost of making Counterpunch feel less special. Articulation is limited to the arms, but hey, if you get creative, there are multiple axes of motion, and even an early ratcheted shoulder joint. That's all, though, as the neck is locked, and everything below the waist is rod-fused as a slightly disguised uni-leg. The aforementioned special feeling of Counterpunch begins from the one true Short King Punch robot mode, allowing us to full transform the legs from one shape to another, turning the feet 180 degrees for maximum podiatric misdirection. I've always loved how, despite both sets of arms living visibly right next to each other, the flaring of Punch's shoulders into Counterpunch's shoulder pauldrons creates so much more visual difference between both silhouettes. Not to mention the sheer cheek, the gall, the slickness, the inherent storytelling of how the same head simply tilts a visor to reveal a different face on the other side. Counterpunch is, almost literally, Punch turning around to reveal a different robot on his back. Or was Punch on the back of a true and more sinister form all along? To this day, I'm so enamored with the notion of that normal-eyed and face-plated visage being literally muffled to reveal a giant visor over a sneering lip. All the golden yellow ducks away to reveal a dark blue self-proclaimed Decepticon, even though a glance at Counterpunch's back would tell the tale of his deceit in one silent, awkward moment. The cheerful twin mortar launcher is tossed aside in favor of a long, jet-black photon cannon. Articulation remains the same as before, like, really, just, what did you think? Though Counterpunch's arms are more oriented for inward bending than Punch's more textbook forward-swinging upper limbs, the legs are still the same. What did you think I was gonna say? And that's the story of the original Punch Counterpunch, an incredibly effective little bundle of 1987 play pattern whose inherent storytelling far surpassed everything he ever had to work with in official fiction. What if either robot mode dual-wielded both of his guns? Imagine the ramifications of both sets of arms coming to life, almost as though one persona were fighting for control, or the living nightmare of Punch realizing that his own cranial assembly was forcing itself down over his eyes, as a familiar yet unfamiliar voice began to whisper from the back of his own throat. Unrealized potential aside, this is still one of my favorite Generation 1 Transformers to date, and one that I sorely wish had seen a reissue at some point in the past 36 years? I guess the Pontiac folks aren't Double Spy fans. Anyway, this has been internet personality Vangelus, and whether their voices emanate from my foremouth or rear mouth, I give double thanks to all my V supporters and V producers for their contributions to both the cause and the counter cause.